United Kingdom faces a £9 trillion problem. Because on top of the £2.5 trillion in financed debt obligations, which are frequently cited, over the years, governments of all types have accumulated £1 trillion in other liabilities, such as nuclear decommissioning costs, health negligence costs, and other costs for which no money has been put aside. £1.5 trillion in obligations to the pensions of public sector workers, for which no money has been set aside. And the state pension system, created in an era of a reliable expectation of 2 to 3% annual growth and a growing working age population, is now a £4 trillion liability with no money set aside. That's about £9 trillion of liabilities we are passing down to future generations, and that just isn't fair. For decades now, rather than confront harsh economic realities, politicians have told voters that the state can shoulder more and more responsibility, when in reality its capacity and its efficacy in many cases to do so has been diminishing. Politicians have not grappled effectively with the pressure of public wants, the public's impatience for results, and a lack of public seriousness about the costs involved. Rather than wish away these issues, politicians should confront them. And so yesterday, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, pledged that Conservative MPs will support the government if it wants to develop proper, thoughtful reforms to welfare. She did this because she realises how serious the financial situation is for our public finances, and because she knows that neither borrowing more money nor raising taxes can be the answer, and she was right to make that offer. We need politicians who are prepared to tell voters tough economic truths rather than pander to economic wishful thinking. The truth that the UK has been living off the fumes of empire for far too long. The truth that the world does not owe us, any of us, a living. The truth that there is no special status for our country that can be maintained without continuous purposeful effort. And the truth that we owe it to our children and grandchildren to find a way to make the state live within its means, rather than splurging public money on ourselves to their detriment. And that commitment to public finance responsibility must be matched by another commitment on our approach to the economy. In 1981, I went in search of Milton Friedman. Quite literally. I boarded a Greyhound bus and headed to Chicago University, where he was teaching. The fact that I chose to make that effort reflects both the reach of his free-to-choose economic principles and my personal adherence to them, and with good reasons. The effectiveness of free markets and free trade to create and distribute wealth unencumbered by political intervention. The moral power of the capitalist system, where millions of individual decisions have combined to rescue billions of people from poverty and want. The opportunity from enterprise, from effort, from insight, from innovation, for the individual, for his or her family, for those they employ, for the society of which they are part, to create a secure foundation for future generations. And the beauty, best encapsulated in the 1958 essay, I, Pencil, by Leonard Read, of how the independent economic incentives of dispersed individuals can create something as simple and everyday as a pencil. It is sad that 40 years on, in the United Kingdom, much of the time it seems that only the Conservative Party now stands fully in defence of free market principles. And it's important that it does so. Across Western democracies, people are turning their backs on free markets, and by so doing, are imperiling individual freedom. Political discourse in our democracies is increasingly driven by the interventionists, the political bullies, the peddlers of false truths, and by those that harness social media to sharpen divisions rather than heal them. If our country wants a solution to the £9 trillion problem, if we want to pass on a better future to our children, then we must not abandon these engines of prosperity, but recommit ourselves to them. That is a responsibility, just as much as our responsibility to live within our means, that we owe to future generations. Thank you.
first of all, thank you for your time and for your engagement. I should say that Karim Pallant, our Director of External Affairs, was in the Shadow Chancellor's constituency last week. At least he claims to have been, because he sent me a travel expense to that effect. Okay. But the serious point is, he, as part of our MP Connect programme, making sure that parliamentarians understand businesses backed by the industry in their backyards. It's really important for us to bring to life what is happening there. Having you here this afternoon is also helpful for us to understand what is driving the thinking of the party. In terms of linking the reality of businesses like those in Mel's constituency and the big picture markets point that you've just made, what's your assessment of where the country is in terms of its willingness to back private capital and to give it the freedoms it needs to invest for growth?
Well, that's a good question. On one level, and this is not recent, this has been growing over years, I don't think there's been a time where more people of more backgrounds, the earlier speeches, the winner of the award was talking about the importance of diversity, but more people of more backgrounds have really wanted to get involved and start a business. And it could start as a side business. My issue over the years has been the spread of that, of the ability to hook into that potential. That too much of it has been focused in Cambridge and Oxford and London. So how do you create a popular approach to the ability to invest in and support talent in different parts of the country? And one of the things, I'll be talking to Andrew Griffiths, who is the business shadow secretary, is, as we move to the next election, the Conservative Party should, yes, be standing in support of all those principles I just talked about, but we've got to find a way to make it real for that individual in Doncaster or Derby or Dumfries who wants to start their own business. So what is the Conservative offer for them? There's lots of things we did that were good on that front, but I don't think we ever really sort of got that popular side of capitalism in the sort of levelling up agenda.
A lot of what you said there was, as I say, helpfully provocative, making people think again afresh about some of the founding principles that, for the economy and what has driven British success over the years. But can I maybe draw you into more consensual ground and the collaboration that has been taking place between the pensions world and the private capital world in the last couple of years? Jeremy Hunt, when he was Chancellor, made a big statement of intent and got a lot of financial institutions on board for the Mansion House Compact, basically challenging everybody to put more capital to work in the productive economy and particularly channeling through venture capital and growth capital. We've seen the Chancellor now support that, continue that. The latest Lord Mayor with the Accord has built on that. How important does that remain for the Conservatives in the next couple of years?
Look, it is important. There are issues of political consensus, and this is one of those. I think we have a sharp disagreement with the government over the issue of mandation. That sounds a bit too like a sledgehammer or coercion, but there are real needs to get the pension funds who've built great expertise in one particular asset class or a range of asset classes, but perhaps don't have the range of skills in other areas. So how do we solve the conundrum of building their confidence and their knowledge and their expertise to invest in those areas at a pace that will enable people who have been missing out with their pension funds from the attractions of private equity, of other alternative assets and venture capital. I mean, people really will want these. If they get the chance to invest in them, people will want to do them. So I think the consensual part, I think, will be working with Torsten Bell and others in the current government to see if there are practical ways to get those skill sets into pension funds early enough, and any other issues that might stand in the way of making that flow happen, because we don't want coercion. That would be a terrible thing for us to have.
One of the themes of our conference on day one at the Pensions Investment Summit session yesterday morning was about the new technology wave and the fact that there's so much excellence in British science and technology and applying all of that. And there is a moment in time, but there is still not the level of capital that will back those businesses beyond the early stages. And so the scaling up and the global competitiveness, which Sarah Cardell from the CMA was talking about before, will be the loss out on. Does that worry you?
Yeah, I mean, that gap, that scaling up gap has been, you could have done a slideshow on it 20 years ago or 10 years ago in the United Kingdom. This is a persistent problem. I think part of it has to do with market opportunity, that if you grow a business to a certain scale, in many senses, you then either look to Europe or more frequently for tech businesses, you look to America, or they look to you and they take you to America. And so we lose out because of competition from American investors who can sell on the fact that they have a larger market opportunity for you. So I think for my party, for us in opposition, we've got to think about, well, how can we creatively increase the size of the available market for certain technology, not for everything, but for example, with progress in AI, or just with the public sector getting control of some of its data systems, maybe there's a creative way we can use information like that in healthcare and other aspects of citizen knowledge and citizen data that can help create a market opportunity here. On the talent side, we've taken a few steps back, I think. I mean, the idea that if you've got a lot of talent, that the UK is a place for you, and that's if you are here already, let alone you want to find a place to grow your business. We've been sending increasingly chilling messages about that. We've got to, London only thrives, and I only use London because we're in London. London only thrives as a city if people here have an expectation that they can make create considerable wealth. And that wealth that they create for their business then flows over into other businesses as well. So politicians need to start talking about that aspect of it, not feel uncomfortable with that as a model for how you create a successful society. So I think the rhetoric of politics could do with a bit of a shift as well. And finally, on some of the cost bases, we're going to hear soon from the government about its new towns policy. And this is a good thing. I only mention it because I come from Bedfordshire, and we're right on the edge of Cambridgeshire. Of course, Cambridge is, I don't know about Cambridge, but I know about Bedfordshire. But it sort of got me thinking about these new towns, that actually there's a great opportunity. And if you're a venture capitalist here, you'll tell me where I get this wrong. But if I'm investing money as a venture capitalist, what I don't want to spend money on is expensive lab costs, rent. I don't want to spend money on high labor costs. So I can put it in my equity, but I don't want to pay a lot of equity. So when this new towns policy comes out, if it recognizes the importance of listening to intellectual capital and how that can grow effectively, and how government policies in new towns, by creating life, living, working centres, clusters of these, I think that would be a good thing. And if they do, then North Bedfordshire is happy to do its bit.
Richard, it's been great. A bit of challenge, bit of collaboration, and lots of other areas that you're interested to have a look at. We look forward to continuing the dialogue with you. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Fuller.
Thank you.